and it both fails and it succeeds. The bitch is kind of cool in that it has venom out of it, like Mothra, and you know what? It just fails. The fight's cool because there's a lot of bugs involved, and the bitch is big, so Godzilla definitely has something to kind of cool to fight. But the monsters themselves aren't that creative. You could get creative with bugs, since they're very versatile creatures. But just reading the summary, I didn't get that. And of course, we'll never know since this was never really fleshed out. Alright, now on to the big insult of the movie. Not as a Godzilla fan, but as a human being, this is an insult. Anna is, for some weird reason, set up as a romantic interest for Nick Tatopoulos. I don't know why, since there would have been... Since it's set up in the beginning that he's married. I know why they did this too, but I'll get into that later. Basically, Nick gets like this little note once he starts to fall for Anna, conveniently from Audrey, that's saying that his marriage has been annulled and that they're not married anymore and she doesn't love him anymore. How convenient! He just happens to fall in love with this other Australian chick. What are the odds? It's insulting to people who are in relationships that they would end that suddenly. Yeah, if my husband was kidnapped from my wedding, I might want to find out what happened to him before, getting the marriage annulled and saying I don't love him anymore. It makes Audrey look bad, even though I never liked her in the first place. It makes an unrealistic view of love that he conveniently starts to fall in love with this other woman, so his marriage gets annulled, and he has no part of it. It makes things too easy for Nick, and it's just kind of insulting as a person. If I fall in love with another woman and I was married, I would, if I still love my wife, I would go back to her and tell the other woman tough shit. If I didn't love my wife anymore and wanted to be with this woman, that's why we have divorce. Nick is a frickin' coward. And that's horrible since he's our protagonist, and we're supposed to root for him. It's not good writing, it's lazy, it's offensive. Hell, this would have been lazier, but at least it would have made more sense if Audrey was just never mentioned, and Nick was just single for some reason at the beginning of the movie. It wasn't even exactly set up that they were going to continue dating at the end of the first movie. It was hinted at, but it was never guaranteed. I mean, look at Transformers 2, the end of that. I mean, not like that movie made any sense. They loved each other, supposedly. And they didn't end up with each other in the third movie for lazy writing reasons. But, of course, let's not compare it to that. Both versions would have been lazy. It's just the setup is all wrong. And, of course, that's a canon issue. There's no way... it would have been very difficult to write yourself out of that hole. Unless, of course, you just didn't have Anna in the movie. Why didn't Audrey just go with Nick? I mean, that would have been easier. Why was Anna even in the movie? She's not interesting. She's just a bitch who just goes around ranting. It's not like she's an interesting character. The movie would have been the same without Anna. It sounds like the military fight scenes between Godzilla and the babies would have been lame because Godzilla didn't really fight back. It was just kind of the military shoots at him and the people have to do something. This is supposed to be Godzilla. There has not been one military force in the world that ever killed Godzilla. The only people that ever came close, it failed. G-Force killed Godzilla technically, but he came back to life. That was mostly because of Rodan, but there was a message there, but I'm not going to get into it. G-Force had a very hard time killing Godzilla. I don't get that sense with this military in this version of Godzilla. In the Heisei continuity, you really, really rooted for G-Force to get Godzilla. And in this, of course, that was in the scenes where Godzilla wasn't in it, since, of course, we're rooting for Godzilla in the military battle scenes, but you were always hoping that G-Force would one day find a way to kill him, just to see all their characters feel triumphant, because you liked them. General Lasso, I'm drawing a blank. Yuki, I loved him from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, awesome character. Gondo was never paid off. The sister never got to get. She didn't get. Well, she didn't really want revenge. She wanted the other guy, Yuki, to just kind of get closure. But I always thought that this was a big mistake of the Heisei era, and I know I'm getting off track, but just as a Godzilla fan, I want to mention this real quick. I always thought a big miss of the Heisei era was never making Mrs. Gondo a villain. That would have been cool. What if you did, instead of Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Mrs. Gondo? That would have been awesome. If you don't know, if you're not a Godzilla fan and you're just watching this because Mrs. Gondo was the sister of a character named Gondo, and oh god, his first name escapes me at the moment, from Godzilla vs. Biollante, which is again one of my favorite Godzilla movies. Godzilla killed him in the end, and I always said to myself as a kid, oh man, he's gonna get it when that sister gets to him somehow. And making her a part of G-Force, that's brilliant if it was used right. Sorry about that. That has nothing to do with Godzilla 2. It's just I have to say it. So overall, is it superior to 98? Yes and no. Yes, in that it's a better monster movie. It's a better Godzilla movie. Just by having him have atomic breath and being more of a monster mash film rather than just a disaster movie. Yeah, it's a little more entertaining. How is it worse? The characters are even less fleshed out. They're all archetypes. They're all people that just yell at each other and do what the script needs them to do. I mean, there was some consistency in 98 that's not here at all. Just the fact that everything seems like it's just trying to be a Godzilla movie when it's failing. Honestly, I don't think that you could have had a canon of 98 that was good, a good Godzilla movie anyway. I don't think that you could have made a Godzilla 2 or 3 where it was a good Godzilla movie and still be in canon with 98 without being something like Batman Forever. So, 98 just kind of buried itself into a hole where any sequel or spin-off was not Godzilla or just bad. And I don't think Godzilla 2 would have been as bad of a movie, but it definitely would have, as bad of a Godzilla movie, probably would have been a little better. But it might have been a worse movie as just being a brainless action movie rather than a brainless disaster movie. Notice I didn't put a second brainless. The thing is that 98, while it was pretty brainless, had some thought to being a good monster movie by having some references to 50s monster movies, to having some cleverly plotted moments of Godzilla running around the city, some quiet moments of just Godzilla on screen and no human characters, which I thought was cool. And this movie doesn't seem to have that, besides the fact that it would have been cool just to see how the Godzillas were living in Australia. That could have been cool. So where am I going to come down on this? Basically, this movie would have been both better and worse. I'm glad it didn't get made, because while it would have been better, it definitely wouldn't have made money. And the reason is just because everyone at the point of a sequel would know that 98 was not good, and everyone who didn't like it wouldn't have gone to see it, and that's like 75% of your moviegoers, and that movie wouldn't have been successful. Also, I think that if the series would have continued, it just would have gotten progressively less about Godzilla, to the point where the title just is redundant. It's just Zilla, not Godzilla. So I'm glad the movie didn't get made. There are a lot of people who are going to disagree with me, and you're welcome to disagree. But I think that the movie, it's better and worse. It's a better Godzilla movie, but it's a worse movie, if that makes any sense. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll leave a link to the first part of this little summary that this guy did of the script, and then you can base your own opinions on it. But yeah, I didn't really like it. I don't think I'm glad it never got made. Zazabar out.